and welcome into episode 37, the Connor Hellebuck episode of the Level Flight podcast. I'm joined by Elliott and Brian today, and if you are on YouTube, you'll see that Brian is at the lake. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm just relaxing out here. I'm kind of unplugged the last little bit, so it's been nice.
Very nice. We understand that you're on data, so your visit on today's episode won't be
Yes.
as long as we hope, but we appreciate you coming out because I don't know, it looks like a nice morning there. You can enjoy some coffee, still 8 in the morning, and just chill out. Maybe jump
Yeah.
in the water.
I don't know.
Elliott, how are you doing?
I'm good. Trying to get over a couple Sea Bears losses, so a little
Tough road trip so far.
Yeah. Looking like another team we know on a tough road trip. Can't seem to get over the hump.
The Bombers? Oh no, they got smoked at home. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anyways,
in the fortress.
Yeah, so there is stuff within the organization this week that we can actually talk about. There's development camp, which is happening for the first time in, I don't know, 5 years since COVID, which I'm super excited for. I know Elliott and I are going to be going. Brian's at the lake, so I don't know how likely his appearance is going to those practices, but we're going to try and make an effort because the roster looks really good. A lot of first-round picks, both goalies that have impressed, and yeah, it should be fun. We'll dive into it a little bit more, but I want to get more thoughts from Brian just on development camp in general before he has to get out of here.
Yeah, I'll give my thoughts and I'll duck out because I have no idea how long I'll be able to sustain my my video or audio here. But no, I think that it's the fact that it's back this year should be, I think, a bigger story because it was. I remember when it was announced that they weren't doing it, and everyone was just livid. But no, I think that this year you're going to get a lot of really, really exciting, little scrimmages, and I'm just thinking of that prospect pool now, and recently how it's been sort of the excitement level of it is a lot higher. So you're gonna have guys like Lambert and Lucius and did I see McGroarty on the list?
Yes,
Yep.
He will be there.
All right, so yeah, you'll see that, and that'll be more of a future thing because he's returning to school. But the fact that you can see it and it'll be sort of like a glimpse into the future, I think that should be exciting for a lot of people. Personally, I'm really excited to see the immediate sort of oh hello, I'm here from Colby Barlow. But no, I think it should be great. I wish I could make it, but as much as I could say, or I wish I could say, I'd be at the lake. I have to go back tonight, and I have to work this week, so I can't actually go. But Elliott and Connor will most certainly be able to give their insight.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, enjoy your final hours at the lake. Maybe jump in the water one last time, and we'll see you back in Winnipeg
Post on Twitter
in a few hours. Yeah.
Yeah, if the sun comes out, I'll debate it, but it's cloudy, cool, and windy right now, so maybe I'll just do some fishing instead.
There you go. Make the most of it.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Brian from the lake. Brian from the lake. Boom.
No
there
problem.
He is.
See you guys. See you next week.
See ya. Alrighty. Now it's just
you and I.
It's us with regular reception. Here we are. All right. Let's get into it. I mean, development camp. I want to know your thoughts because it's the first time in 5 years. The forward prospect pool is really deep. If you look at the roster, you look at the forwards, and then you look at the defense, it's pretty big contrast there because defense, it's like Salamonson, Kuzmin, Garrett Brown, or no, was he on the? He's not
Garrett
on the list.
Brown is not. Yeah. There's a couple names on the list that we will talk about in our little thing that we got going on afterwards. Yeah. Just to read you out the defenseman: Antonio Hannison, Tyrell Bauer, Elias Salmonson, Dimitri Kuzmin. A couple free agent bring-ins: Jordan Turingi, Josh Zinger, Scooter Brickley, and Wyatt Wilson. who is with the Winnipeg Ice. Oh, I guess sorry, I didn't see the asterisk. That is also a free agent to bring in. So they didn't have enough defensemen then. So they've brought in guys in the development camp.
Right.
Then I will read you off the forwards, and you can see what the difference is here.
Yeah.
McGroarty, Lambert, Barlow, Lucius, Danny Shilkin, Fabian Wagner, Zach Naing, Jacob Julian, Parker Ford, Connor Levis, Carson Golding, Nikita Chibrikov, Davis Burnside, David Chen, Luis Jemernik, and Jack Williams. I know I read off the other names, but you can see that the first bunch of names that I said were more draft picks from this upcoming season. I am actually surprised. You said Garrett Brown. I'm surprised he's not here.
Well, but Kelly Moore had a tweet that said that he has school commitments at the University of Denver, I believe is where he's going. So, I mean, you can't really blame him if he's, doing school stuff.
But hey, McGroarty's there, so.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know. No, but there are times, I was talking to you about it, because there are times where the forwards and defense are going to be on different rinks at the Iceplex or the Hockey for All Center now. And I was saying to you, like, every single time we're going to pick the rink with the forwards, because there's multiple first round picks, Chibrikov, Zhilkin, who we really like. There's just so much talent on the forward group. And then the goaltending as well. I can't wait to watch that with DiVincentis. How does he look? Rutger McGroarty's going to be shooting on him all camp, and Brad Lambert and Chaz Lucius. So it'll be really fun. I'm excited to go back. I'm glad that it's open to the public, because I remember going to both of these back in the day where it would be this and then it would be training camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going to the Hockey for All Center. If you've followed me on Twitter, you know that the last 2 training camps I've gone and filmed like just a ton of clips and just posted them all. I'm going to do that again. I'm glad we can do it for rookie development camp, because people care more about, what McGroarty's doing rather than like Adam Lowry. Yeah. If McGroarty makes a cool play at practice, more people care about it than Morgan Barron, right? Like it's just
toe drag bar down from Lambert.
It's just human nature.
Toe drag bar down from Morgan Barron, but
it's just because he's a first rounder and it's the future and people get excited about that. And it's going to be fun. I hope it's a good turnout. But yeah, what are some things that specifically you're looking for? I know, me personally, I want to see the health of Chaz Lucius, because he's been injured a few times now. He got hurt after 6 games, I think it was, with the Portland Winterhawks. So I want to see if he's healthy. I want to see how he looks. I want to see if he looks like his regular self, because it's been, I think, 4 or 5 months since that injury. So him going up against the speedy Lambert, the strong, powerful McGroarty, it'll be the scrimmages will be a good indicator of how healthy he really is. Going into training camp. But what are some things that you're watching for? Could be Chaz Lucius being healthy or something else.
Yeah, I like you said, I think a big thing is going to be Lucius's health. There were questions over if he was going to be at the development camp or not. This obviously signals that if he's here, he's healthy, he's maybe ready to go. We'll see if they actually take him out of specific drills. Maybe he's wearing a non-contact jersey. He may just do stuff like shooting drills, that sort of thing, skating stuff. He may not be in the scrimmages. We'll see. But I'm super excited to see a couple of the players that are going to be there. I think seeing Barlow is going to be cool, getting him ready. Yeah. I also want to see some of the new forwards that the Jets drafted as well. Like Zach Naing is going to be there. I know Levis was a 7th round pick, but as far as I know, he was higher up on most people's lists in terms of just talent wise. So I'm intrigued that they've brought him and not like a Jacob Julian or who's the other one? There's another pick in there. No, it's just Naing and Julian. But I'm surprised that Julian's not there either. Yeah, I guess Millich was after
Millich.
that. I'm thinking he was a forward, but but obviously Millich is going to be there. So I think the goaltending battle is going to be cool. I'm just hoping that one of the goalies, either Millich or DiVincentis, are with the forwards tomorrow, because the goalies start at 9:45. And
I think they start at 9:45 just to get warmed up. Like you'll see Hellebuck, like at training camp, you'll see Hellebuck come out 15 minutes early and just take shots from whichever forward is ready in the dressing room will come out and just shoot. And it'll be like they're just warming up. But Millich, I'm glad you brought up the goalies, because Millich is turning pro next season, because he's aged out of the dub. right? So against McGroarty, Lucius, Lambert, all these talented shooters, he needs to be like up to the task, because if he's going to be turning pro next year and playing for the Moose, he's going to be facing good competition. Like that's the AHL is
And
a big
that's what
step
I
up from the
hope
dub,
they
right?
throw out tomorrow at 10 o'clock, because goalies go with either one of the groups. There's 3 goalies. The other one is another name we're going to talk about in a little bit, Logan Neaton. So I'm hoping it's not Neaton with the forwards tomorrow, and the other 2 are with the defensemen. I'm hoping they split up DiVincentis and Millich and kind of flip them back and forth between forwards and defensemen, so that they both get development. Obviously, Logan Neaton, we'll talk about him in a little bit, was a draft pick from 2019, and he was a later round goalie that didn't have as much hyper upside as you would expect from these other 2. So. Not that I don't care about his development, and if he breaks out, he breaks out. But just as a general,
a lot of people are excited about Millich. Like a lot of people, because
they saw him at the World Juniors. That's why.
Exactly. And he played great at the World Juniors too. Like he kept Canada in some games that they won close there at the end. So there's reason to be excited. And then people who went to see the Winnipeg Ice for Seattle Thunderbirds games here and saw Millich play great. I don't know. There's a lot of excitement for a 5th round goalie, but it's kind of warranted because he's got a decent pedigree in the last year or so. So I'm excited to see him. DiVincentis, we've talked about him a lot.
I think people should be excited to see him too. Yeah. You don't get the award for playing middling as a 7th round pick, or 7th round pick.
Yeah. So. And I remember watching him at training camp last year. So I want to see how obviously he's developed, because he's went on to win OHL goalie of the year. So I want to see,
almost made the Memorial Cup. Like he was almost their entrant instead. So
and I want to see how much better he is, how much quicker he is, stuff like that. Goalies are hard to like scout and like really get a read on, but I have a feeling with him it'll be noticeable, because again, you don't just go from 7th round pick to OHL goalie of the year doing the same things, right? So I'm so excited. It starts tomorrow. When you're hearing this episode, it'll be today, this morning. We wanted to get this episode out earlier in the week to kind of tee up development camp, because we're both going to be there. I know you're going to be there Wednesday. You said maybe Friday as well.
I'm going to try to get there as much as I can. Just
there you go. Yeah, I'll be there probably every day, because I'm not busy in the mornings usually. So I'll just go to the Hockey for All Center. Why not? Might as well. It's exciting. And to kind of, add some excitement around development camp, we've got a tier list ready to go. Elliott cooked up a tier list last night. If you want to go on Tier Maker, it's there.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Incidentally, there were names we weren't going to put on the list.
Right.
But I'm glad that we did, because they're actually now actually looking at the full development roster, and I should have beforehand, but I just put in, and we'll get into it in a second. I put in a bunch of names. I thought, well, they haven't shown too much. We haven't heard from them. Do I want to put them in? And I put them in, and I'm glad I did, because they're going to be at development camp tomorrow. So
there you go. Yep, there you go. We gotta cover everyone, right? So yeah, let's get into it. First, we're gonna hear an ad read from DraftKings. Brian, who is at the lake, is gonna do our ad read, because he always does it. But I think it's going to be cut from last week's episode, because it's the same ad read. So let's hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
All right. So, there's various different sports going on, but right now you got things, like the MLB, you got different things that you can, check out on DraftKings Sportsbook. So new customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. Just bet $5 to score $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER in Massachusetts. Call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. In West Virginia, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. All games are regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In partnership with the Hollywood Casino and Charlestown Races. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org.
21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. 1 boost per eligible game, opt-in required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms.
And welcome back into episode 37 of the Love Flight Podcast, the Connor Hellebuck episode. We got to keep pumping that because we don't know how many Connor Hellebuck references we have left. Anyways, if you're on YouTube, you can see the tier we've got going on here, the tier maker. There's a lot of Jets prospects on this list. We've got graduated, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and tier 5. We're going to be selecting these players into these different tiers based on, what we think their potential is, right? Do the Jets have any tier 1 prospects? That's a question we were asking ourselves before making this episode, because do you count Perfetti? Is he lower into tier 2 now after the injuries? There's a lot of questions around the top end of the group. And then tier 3, tier 4 is also very interesting because there's certain players that I don't know. Like, we're kind of treating it like, let's do this first. Tier 1 is like franchise cornerstone, going to be for the Jets for the next decade. Amazing player, surefire prospect. So like maybe Cole Perfetti if you're really high on Cole Perfetti. Tier 2, we were saying would be like a top 6 forward, top 4D. So guy
that'll be there, but not
really like a superstar, but yeah, like a Nikolai Ehlers, like a great top 6 player. Tier 3 is more of a middle 6/second pairing if it's a defenseman. So not really like a top line player. Like maybe they have that upside, but their potential is more projected to be kind of like a third line player at the NHL level. Tier 4 is like a bubble NHLer/AHLer, and then tier 5 we're just labeling off as a bust.
Or just hasn't worked out or didn't get the opportunity or whatever the case may be.
Right. So I don't know, unless you have anything else to preview this, I think we should get rolling.
Well, other than the graduated tier, I think it's self-explanatory. Right. It's just guys we think that have now hit either Connor and I were saying 24, but even we were saying if you've had a decent amount of NHL experience, you've had your opportunity, or for some players, you're going to be getting your opportunity soon and you won't be considered a prospect anymore. And it's go time. You got to show something.
Yeah.
That's where that graduated tier comes from.
Yeah. That's a good shout. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the graduated tier and just get those names kind of off the list kind of thing.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm going to throw David Gustafsson up here.
Yeah.
He's had a rough stretch of injuries at the NHL level. But I think we know what kind of player he's going to be. And that is a 4th line center, maybe 3rd line if he can put a full season together and post some strong analytics. But at this stage in his career, too many injuries. He's past the point of a prospect. We know where he's at in his development.
We know what he's going to be. And we know when he is healthy, we know that he's going to be good. Like he's a solid 3rd or 4th line, more so 4th line center. Like I like what he brings to the table. He's a good penalty killer, that sort of thing. But yeah, he has to stay healthy. I will also mention once we've put them in the graduated tier, they will no longer be in the prospect pyramid. So we're hoping to do this years on years.
Every year. Yeah.
So someone like a Gustafsson gets in the graduated tier and hopefully he stays healthy and he has a good career. Now no longer a prospect. But anyway,
there you go.
That's about all to say about David Gustafsson.
Yeah, true. Interesting camp battle, 4th line center with Kapari, Gustafsson. Yeah, it would have been Stenlund, but he signed elsewhere. Yeah, it's something to watch for sure. Yeah. This guy hasn't gotten a chance in the NHL yet, but I'm gonna go Declan Chisholm. Is graduated as well. I think we know that his ceiling in the NHL is kind of a solid number 5 or number 6 defenseman, like a puck moving offensive specialist number 5. Again, he hasn't gotten his chance. He was an NHL All-Star last year, but I don't know. Do you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah. I think he's got to go. Like he's got to get ready to go here. Like now, I know we said 24 was the age limit. He's already 23. He should be turning 24 this year. So he's getting there in age, and he's kind of reaching his ceiling in terms of what he can do in the AHL. That's also another thing that I kind of want to say is part of the graduated tier. If we feel like you're in the AHL, you haven't really gotten your chance yet, but we feel like you've hit your cap at what you can develop at in the minors or in juniors or whatever, then you hit the graduated tier because there's not much else for you to do. If you can't make it, if you can't play at the NHL level, either the Jets got to trade you or you got to find somewhere else to play in North America or wherever.
And Chisholm is no longer waivers exempt this upcoming year. A lot of people have made note of that, saying the Jets need to make room for Declan Chisholm on the back end, or else they're going to lose him for nothing, right? Yeah. So that's something to watch for as well. What other names are you looking at here for the graduated tier? I mean, Nathan Smith.
Yeah, I guess Nathan Smith.
Who's been traded to the Coyotes at this point.
Yeah.
We don't need to go in depth. He was traded for an LTIR dump of Brian Little's contract. But I don't know. Is there any other names that are standing out here?
The only one that would be Ville Heinola people would,
right?
Because he's gotten his chance, quote unquote, but not in long spurts like we've hoped he would.
Yeah, let's throw Ville up there in graduated, and then we can just make note of where he. Oh, not tier 1. That would be a take.
Back in 2020, that he's tier 1, but not now.
No, I will make note of where we would put him once we go down the tiers here, but I would agree. I think he's graduated. I think we know his ceiling at the NHL is kind of a solid number 4 defenseman at this point in his career.
Yeah.
So let's get into tier 1, franchise cornerstones, surefire prospects that are guaranteed to provide like star value at the NHL level. Is Cole Perfetti a tier 1 prospect? Is the question here, because I don't think you can put, maybe you could argue Lambert off the season he just had in the WHL, but he did struggle in the AHL, so I'm not really ready to put him at tier 1.
Yeah.
And then McGroarty and Barlow, I don't think are there yet, and there's no one else you could really consider for the spot.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on Perfetti? Is he a tier 1 or is he a high end tier 2 prospect?
To me, I think he is probably a tier 1.
Okay.
I know we technically could put him in the graduated category. I know when Connor and I were doing this by ourselves, we compared notes. I put him in the graduated tier because I thought that he had played enough games. Like if we're putting Ville in there, probably should put Perfetti. But I think Perfetti still has some ways to develop still as a player. And he's already in the top 6. Like he's comfortably in the top 6 right now.
Exactly.
And theoretically, like if you could find a way to put him next to a shooter on the first line, whether that be a Kyle Connor or somebody else.
Gabe Vilardi.
Gabe Vilardi. Like if this year, as long as he's playing on the left wing, which I'm assuming the Jets are doing with bringing in Kupari, but
I don't know because Chevy said that Perfetti's going to get his chance at center, quote unquote. That was what he said. So I don't know if that means training camp they're going to give it a look. I don't know if that means the first 10 games of the season they're going to give it a look. But I think putting Perfetti at center is a great idea because on the wings, he's engaged in more board battles. He's gotten hurt along the wall twice already in his very short NHL career. And he was drafted as a center. Like when he was coming out, he was a center. So I think it's a great idea to try him there. Whether or not it works out is another story because Vilardi could play center. But I think putting Perfetti in the middle of Vilardi and Nino or something along those lines would be, or Ehlers or Kyle Connor, just some shooters because we know how good of a setup man he is. And maybe he breaks out as a center, right? Maybe he hits another level that we haven't seen yet. But he's got to stay healthy. The flashes have been there. But I agree with you. I think he's a tier 1 prospect. Yeah.
I think the other reason why is, as we mentioned a couple of times, he's a tier 1 prospect because he's been injured. Like, yes, Ville hasn't played enough games, but he hasn't really been injured. He hasn't gotten his opportunity, but we don't think he can develop anymore. Perfetti, we know, can develop more, and he's been injured. So that's why he's still considered a prospect because he hasn't hit his ceiling yet.
He's only 21. right? He's 21. So there's a lot of room there for growth in the next year or two. It has to happen in the next year or two. I think this is a contract year coming up. So you might see a breakout season. I don't think you can really argue anyone else for tier 1.
No.
So we'll move into tier 2 here.
There's a but and just want to make it clear, just because you don't have because you don't have a lot of players in tier 1 isn't a bad thing. Having Connor's gonna start throwing names here in tier 2, and I think that's fantastic. You want to still have a bunch of tier 2 prospects. You still need guys. There's going to be more guys normally in your organization that fit that top 6, middle 6, and then once we get down there, especially bottom 6 role, then tier 1. Having one player in tier 1 is pretty good. Lots of teams don't even have anybody in tier 1 for a long time. Lots of times they have tier 2 or tons of tier 3 prospects. So
yeah. And like tier 1 prospects, some contending organizations, like you said, don't have any because they're picking late all the time, right? Cole Perfetti was an earlier pick in the first round, but we know the Jets are always picking in the middle of the first round because that's where they are at the end of the season. So having a decent amount of tier 2 prospects and having a tier 1 prospect at all is a good sign. And they're all forwards. For those not on YouTube, I threw Lambert and McGroarty into tier 2 because those two are locks. Because first round picks, the production is there. They're still very, very young, but they'll pick it up in the next year or two. Development camp, we will see them both. But Lambert, we've raved about him. His production has been off the charts with the Thunderbirds. McGroarty's got another year left at Michigan, but I'm really excited to see what he does this week. Now the questions for tier 2 for me, Chaz Lucius and Colby Barlow, because Lucius, I think you could put up there, but he's been hurt too much. Like Lucius had 15 points in 6 WHL games.
He's in the same space as Cole Perfetti.
That's an incredible pace, but he's just hasn't stayed healthy. So I don't know if you can put him in tier 2 because he just hasn't been able to put long stretches together. And this is such a critical time for development, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where are you on Chaz Lucius?
I'm still in the camp of he should be tier 2.
Okay.
Theoretically, if we're placing Cole Perfetti in tier 1, I think we need to give Chaz Lucius the benefit of the doubt, and we go based off of talent alone, talent and potential. So if we're giving Cole Perfetti the benefit of the doubt and he's in tier 1, I think Lucius should be in tier 2. Now, that's not to say next year, if he has another injury, that I wouldn't be opposed to bumping him down to tier 3 because he keeps getting injured. But I think for right now, because he's had one injury previous and then now he's had one this year, I think you can give him one more season, especially if we've given Perfetti. Perfetti's been injured twice already. So if we're given that, then Lucius has been injured twice. So I think tier 2 is fine.
I can get behind that because the talent is there, right? So I'm here with you. Now, Colby Barlow, I know you're a big fan, but is he in the same tier as Lambert, McGroarty, and Lucius? Are we
at
ready
this
to
stage?
Make that?
I don't know.
I think what we're also kind of doing here, if you're on YouTube, is they're kind of in order as well. Like the graduated class, no. But tier 2, I think Lambert, then McGroarty, then Lucius. I mean, Lambert and McGroarty, I think, are a coin flip for who you think is the better prospect at this point. But then Lucius, then Barlow. So I'd say,
I'd be okay with that. If we're doing it by order, then I'm okay with that.
Barlow could be at the lower end of tier 2. Just because he's 18, or 17. We don't even know. We haven't seen anything yet. The first year after the draft is arguably the biggest year for development. You saw it with Brad Lambert. He took off when he went down to the WHL. So this is a big year for him. And I think he has the potential to be in that tier 2, but at the moment he's kind of at the lower end. Would you agree?
I would agree. And we know that his floor is lower. Right. Or sorry, it's higher. Sorry, he's a higher floor.
Yeah.
He's a higher floor.
Yeah.
So we know that he realistically in the end, he probably should be in tier 3. He'll probably be a tier 3 at least to begin with in terms of talent level at some point. But if we're basing it off potential, He has
Yeah.
potential to be a top 6
Yeah.
scoring winger, right? So I think he is towards the bottom of tier 2. I think the Jets have players with more potential than Barlow, but I think he's still a tier 2 player. I think he has a higher ceiling than just being a middle to bottom 6 forward. So
yeah. And I think that is the end of tier 2. You could argue a few prospects here, but I see them more as top end tier 3 guys personally. Let's get into tier 3 because Elias Salamonson, I think, is going to be in there. Where is Dominic DiVincentis? I'd throw in there.
probably
I'd throw him in there just because of the season he had. I'd throw
Millich.
Danny Jilkin in there. I don't think I'd throw Millich in at tier 3.
You think he's a
I
tier
think
4?
Maybe at the end of tier 3.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of tier 3.
Chibrikov I think should be
Chibrikov, yeah, for sure. He's probably higher than DiVincentis, and there you go. Yeah. Are there any other names here that you're looking at that you have to have them in tier 3? Maybe Millich, right?
Millich is the
At the
only one
end.
that probably at the end. So you would rank right now DiVincentis as a better goaltender prospect right now than Millich, just because.
Yes, for sure. I think that's a lock. I mean, Millich has done well this past year, but the season that DiVincentis just put together, I think you can't really ignore that.
Yeah.
If Millich comes out and has, like, he's going pro next year, like we said, if he comes out for the Moose and posts a 910 save percentage or something over 900, 905, wins a couple games, shows flashes, I think that'll be really good for his development going straight into pro and putting up those numbers. But I just don't have as much faith in Millich developing as I do DiVincentis at this moment. Like, we know goalies are voodoo, but DiVincentis is just, he just put together an incredible season. So I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt being higher up on that list.
And DiVincentis is younger I know it's just a year, but he DiVincentis turned 19 this year. Millich will be turning 21 and DiVincentis will be turning 20. Yeah. So I don't disagree. I think that tier 3, there's one extra name, but I think there's a couple guys. I'm comparing it to tier 2. There's one extra name in tier 3. I mean, the only other name.
I was like, who are you thinking? Yeah.
I mean, well, I would maybe throw Kuzmin in, but we haven't seen enough. And I like him as a prospect. I think Kuzmin is more higher in tier 4 at this current moment.
I think I'm gonna make an executive decision here and throw Millich down in tier 4. I think there should be a whole tier separating DiVincentis and Millich. I don't know.
Yeah,
just because
I think it's also hard to tell with goalies.
Like, yes, it is. But Millich also, like, people are going crazy because they saw the World Juniors and all this, but there's a reason they got him in the 5th round, and there's a reason he has to go pro next year. Like, he's an overager. He's aging out of the WHL. And, like, this is it. Like, as a prospect, he needs to hit, like, now. Because he's already 20, I believe, going on 21. Yeah. So if he doesn't work out in the AHL in the next 2 years, then you're at 23, looking at more AHL time. You're not really moving the needle much. I think DiVincentis, being younger, coming off the season he just had, I think he should be a full tier ahead of Millich. I don't know.
Yeah. Millich did have a good year this year. Just to reiterate, he did have a 928 save percentage with a 2.08 goals against average.
Yeah.
So and his previous season was a 912 with a 2.44. So he's been a good goaltender the last 2 years. But yeah, there's a reason he was a 5th rounder. There's also a reason last year that Dominic DiVincentis was a 7th rounder. So
there was.
But we will have to see. I think I agree. I think Millich is kind of in that bubble zone. He's kind of in the middle. But I will agree we can put him down into tier 4.
Alrighty. Now, anything else before we move on to tier 4? For tier 3, you already mentioned Kuzmin. I think, more of a high-end tier 4. I think the only name that you could really consider for this spot is Rashevsky.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
He's under contract in Russia for, I believe, another year or 2 after this one. He's already 22. Like he's close to, like, graduating.
Yeah.
But
if he doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right. So that might be more of a tier 4.
Yeah.
Just based off his contract situation and what's going on there. But just to reread tier 3, from left to right, we had Elias Salamonson, Nikita Chibrikov, Dominic DiVincentis, and then Danny Zhilkin. We were high on Danny Zhilkin. I think that's a good spot for him regardless.
Yep.
Two-way center in the 3rd round, showed a lot of promise with the Kitchener Rangers. I'm excited to watch him, arguably the most of some of the higher end forwards. Like, Lambert is going to be good, but Zhilkin, how does he stack up against these players that are getting all the hype, right?
That'll be something. He looked really good last year at actual Jets training camp.
Exactly.
Right. So was that development camp or training camp?
No, that was training camp.
That looked actual training camp. And as far as we know, he got a look for the NHL roster. So I'm intrigued to see after a good OHL season how he looks this year against some of these guys.
I remember posting a few of his clips where he just absolutely just blew by defensemen, and people were commenting like, who was that defenseman? Like, who, like, it must have been like a prospect or an AHL level defenseman that he just blew by. And then there was one time, I believe it was Brendan Dillon or Nate Schmidt. It was one of the veteran defensemen that he just completely just went right by them with his speed. It was really impressive.
He's a very fast player, and I think he's good. He's, as a 3rd line center, to have that kind of speed is going to be nuts.
It is. So I'm really excited to see him at development camp this week. Let's move on to tier 4. We've already got Millich in here. You said Kuzmin, and I agree with that. We'll throw Rashevsky in there because he's definitely, like, he might age out, he might graduate in a year or two here, but I'll throw Zachary Naing in here at tier 4 just because he's a 3rd round pick. There's not a lot to look for when it comes to Naing because he played in the USHL last year, and that there's no clips really online that you can really find. If you search up his highlights, really nothing comes up. It's an interesting prospect because not a lot of people knew about him.
And he'll be there tomorrow, or as you're listening today. So
there you go.
He'll be at development camp, so that'll probably be for most people their first look at Zach Naing. So
yeah, I agree. Daniel Torgerson, I think, should be in here at the lower end of tier 4, just because he's still young. He's got like power forward tendencies, and I think he could be a bottom sixer in the NHL. Now, for a 2nd round pick, that's not really what you're shooting for, is bottom 6 forwards, but the potential's still there for him to develop a little bit more touch, a little bit more finesse to his game, because he's got the power. He hits, he does he plays the right way, quote unquote, or whatever. But he doesn't really have the finishing touch around the net at this very moment.
And we thought that was turning around because we saw again in during the preseason games, he had a couple really nice goals, sitting in front of the net, finding touch more than power. But I know you watched him more with the Moose last year, but as far as I know, it wasn't as flashy as it looked during the preseason.
No, he had some really nice goals where he would lower his shoulder and go inside out. I think there was one goal on Red Wings 1st round defenseman Simon Edvinsson where he just completely went around him, and it was such a nice move. And I was like, I was asking the question, who is that defenseman that he just went by? And it's the Red Wings like top line defenseman of the future. So you see flashes of the talent and the skill, but it just doesn't really come out enough, which I think tier 4 is a pretty good spot for him if that's the case. Is there anyone else looking at this list?
Fabian Wagner is a name that I would say, and then maybe I want to give him the benefit. I know he was a 7th round pick.
I'm gonna go Garrett Brown as well.
You go Garrett Brown. I'm thinking Connor Levis. I know he was 7th round pick, but lots of people had him higher. And I don't think he should go in tier 5 right away, because that's more for guys that we know aren't going to hit / they haven't hit as players. And I think we should give Levis the benefit of the doubt. We know he had talent, but he slid quite far.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know. I'll throw Tyrell Bauer.
Yeah, Bauer. Maybe.
I mean, like, again, tier 4 is for, like, if you're a player, it's for bottom 6 or bottom pairing at the NHL level, right? So Tyrell Bauer in the future, like there's a lot of clips out there of the fights he's had and the hits that he's thrown. In the future, he could totally be a team's number 6 to just go out there and rough people up, like Luke Shen. If he can develop his skating a little bit more, just be that kind of player for a team, right? I don't know. I'm looking at this list of players right now, and I'm not really seeing anyone for tier 4. If I was talking to, I sit with Dave Minuk of Illegal Curve at every Moose game. If he was here, he would want Henry Niikanen in tier 4, but I'm not willing to put him there. I think he's a tier 5.
I think he's a
tier point.
5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everybody left is guys that have either not hit or we haven't seen enough. Like I know we were trying to make the case for someone like Connor Levis. I know we just drafted Jacob Julian, but that was also a left field pick.
That was a reach, yeah.
So I don't think that. Yes, I know he's a 5th rounder, but he was 18 years old. He was 17, turning 18 this year, I believe. Or no, I guess he was 18. He was 17, and he turned 18 really quickly because his birthday's in September. Right. He put up 16 points for a London Knights team. That I actually don't know how they did last year, but
he's big, and that's about it. So I'm going to try and remember these names for some of these guys. This is Anton Johansson, who's going to be at Dev Camp. This is Austin Wong going into tier 5. This is Giovanni Vellotti, 5th round pick of 2018. This is Harrison Blaisdell. This is Henry Niikanen. This is Jacob Julian. This is Jared Moe. This is Logan Neaton. And this is Simon Lundmark, who will be at Dev Camp, and this is Simon Lundmark. I'm actually pretty impressed that I got all those names. I thought I was gonna butcher one. I'm not gonna lie, but this is our list. To explain some of the tier 5 picks before we just move on to the list in general. The only question marks I think are Simon Lundmark and Jacob Julian. You already kind of touched on Julian, which was a bit of a reach. He's a big center, didn't produce much at all with the London Knights. His ceiling is probably 4th line center that is like a grinder type. Well, not like grinder, but like, you know what I mean? A power forward, 4th line center, defensive specialist kind of thing. And then Simon Lundmark with the Moose last year really struggled, and he was being rotated out of the lineup almost every other game for Ashton Sautner, Jimmy Olney, these players that don't have NHL upside, which is fine. Like you need good AHL defensemen. Jimmy Olney is one of them.
You still want to win games, like
right. Like Mark Morrison has to ice his best lineup, and that's what he was doing. And Simon Lundmark was not a part of those lineups at certain points in the year, right? Which is interesting because last year he was a partner with Ville Heinola for like the majority of the season. It was Chisholm and Gavanka, and then Heinola, Lundmark, and that was the Moose top 4 every single game. You could lock it in, but this year it just wasn't there. The development, he just didn't progress. He took a step back. I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know what it was, but I think he's more of a tier 5 player at this stage. He just
he's going to be turning 23 early. Like as the season gets going, he's turning 23.
He's almost graduated.
This time next year, we'll have to make a decision whether he's, let's say he has a good season, he's tier 4, if he's the same, or if he's just graduated. Like he was a 2nd round pick in 2019. Like a lot of these guys at the bottom here were late round picks in 2018, that sort of thing, right? So we're getting down to the end here. So
he, like Simon Lundmark, he's almost about to graduate out of being a prospect, and he's still being rotated in and out of the AHL lineup. That's not a good sign. Again, I don't know if he was hurt or what, but it'll be interesting to see next year where they slot him in, because the Moose depth has really taken a hit on the back end with presumably Chisholm, maybe Heinola going up, Gavanka being traded to the Sharks the other day. Their defense core is kind of in shambles. I mean, Kuzmin will come in. Lundmark will still be there. There'll be some other names. Elias Salmonson maybe will turn pro next year or the year after that. But we'll see. It'll be something to watch for, at least in training camp.
That's for sure.
Let's roll through the list one more time, just for the people that aren't on YouTube. In the graduated tier, we have David Gustafson, Declan Chisholm, Nathan Smith, and Ville Heinola. As a tier 1 prospect, which is a can't miss prospect, future star, we have Cole Perfetti, and that's it. Tier 2, we have top line players, top 6, top 4. That's Brad Lambert, Rutger McGroarty, Chaz Lucius, Colby Barlow, 4 forwards, 4 recent first-round picks. Tier 3, which is more middle 6 or second pairing, or there's a goalie in here as well. But Elias Salomonson, Nikita Chibrikov, Dominic DiVincentis, and Danny Zhilkin. Tier 4, we've got Thomas Millich, Dmitry Kuzmin, Rashevsky, Zach Naing, Daniel Torgerson, Fabian Wagner, Garrett Brown, Connor Levis, and Tyrell Bauer. And then in Tier 5, we've got Anton Johansson, Austin Wong, Giovanni Vellotti, Harrison Blaisdell, Henry Nikkanen, Jacob Julian, Jared Moe, Logan Neaton, and Simon Lundmark. Let us know what you think of the list, because Elliott went through the trouble of throwing all the names in here, throwing all the photos in here, making the tier list, and make your own. If you disagree
it's
with
on
certain parts of our
TierMaker.
list, search up Winnipeg Jets prospect list. It's one of the first ones. It says like 2018 to present, because anything besides that,
I guess we forgot to
graduated.
preface that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We wanted to say that 2018 was the last year that you could, because you look at the 2017 draft, either the player has moved on, like a Christian Vesalainen, or a Dylan Sandberg has graduated. Gavanka was in that 17 class. Kovacevic, Arvid Holm, Skylar McKenzie, just names that people would know. But
those names have graduated for sure.
Yeah, they've either graduated or moved on, or they've been traded or claimed off waivers and played well for another team.
Exactly.
But so we'll keep, like Connor said, send us. We'll probably post this once the episode goes up on Twitter. You can reply back with yours, kind of argue if your picks are different than ours, and kind of we'd love to see where everybody is at in terms of prospects. This is one of, like, I was sitting there thinking of things to talk about on the show, and hey, this was one thing, because people, we know prospects are fun to talk about. Prospects are fun to watch. It's a cool part of how the game works. So
and with Dev Camp this week, it's a good time to do this, because maybe our opinions will change after Dev Camp. We'll talk next week on the podcast about what we saw, because there will be a lot to take away from this whole situation. There's a lot of things to watch for. I'm working on an article right now that's going to be things to watch for if you're going. And then obviously I'm going to do some takeaways. We're going to do some takeaways on the podcast next week. It should be fun. I love going to Hockey for All Center, watching the future Jets. It should be fun. And I don't know. We're going to post this for sure. And I hope we'll post it after the episode so that we don't get backlash and hate on it before the episode even comes out.
Yeah.
That's very smart. There we go. Because when our takes are getting reamed out on Twitter, then the episode comes out, no one's going to listen, right? So we'll hold on to it. I don't know.
Like we said throughout the episode, as much as we may move players, some guys will move up, some guys will move down in future years. So hopefully next year, when we get a chance to do this again, some guys may move up. Maybe a Brad Lambert moves to tier 1. Maybe a Millich or Kuzmin moves to tier 3 instead, right? So we'll have to see. But that was lots of fun. Nice little chillaxed
prospect episode. There's no pressure on the prospect episodes. You just sit back, chillax, and talk about the potential of players.
And some will hit and some won't, and because we aren't scouts or GMs, we won't get flack if they don't. So
exactly. That's one of my favorite things about the draft is, like, I did my own rankings. Do I think my rankings are going to be correct? Absolutely not. Like, the draft is such a crapshoot, and you saw it with some massive reaches in the first round that we talked about on last week's episode. But it's just like everyone in the draft process is trying to tell each other that they're smarter than each other, when in reality, no one knows.
Yeah.
Like we classified the Coyotes picks as reaches. If they both turn out and they're both these, like, incredible, big, Simashev's a defensive defenseman. What if he turns into Jacob Slavin? And then Daniil Boo, I think his last name is how you pronounce it. What if he turns into Mikko Rantanen? He's 6'5", like, sniper. Like, I don't know. Like, there's just these, you never, like, it's a reach by rankings, but you just never really know.
I know we talk about movies a lot and I know I mentioned draft day last week.
Oh, draft day.
I'm gonna make a
Not draft
no,
day.
not a coach draft day. Make a coach a Moneyball. You'll at least
That's
appreciate
better.
this
There
a
we
little
go.
bit
There we
better.
go. Yeah.
They say it in the movie when they talk about going into the rooms with the prospects that they draft and they're gonna sign. You don't know. You have no idea when you take a player.
Yeah.
You hope they show the flashes, but you never really know until you get to the point where you need to know.
Yeah.
So,
and you can look back on picks, like obviously
and have hindsight.
If you reach on a player and then you look back on the pick and it didn't work out, you can be criticized for that because it was a reach. But if you're just simply taking players at value, like the New York Rangers, can they really get like slandered for their pick in 4 years if Gabe Perreault doesn't work out? He was a top 10 prospect by most things, right? Colby Barlow was in the 10 to 20 range. If he doesn't work out, you can't really, I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to have, and we're not going to start it at minute 50 of this episode. Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah.
But it's like, how much can you really criticize organizations for missing at, like, if you're not reaching? Like, the Coyotes reached. Certain teams reached,
simple things like Portland in the NBA or the Cavs get bashed for taking Greg Oden and the latter Anthony Bennett.
But it's like any team would do that.
Yeah, if you were the first, if you were in 2000, was that 2008 was the Kevin Durant draft? Yeah, Greg Oden was considered to be the best player in college basketball and in the NBA draft pool.
Yeah,
and if injuries didn't derail him, he would have been probably still playing and well, maybe not now, but he'd be in his mid 30s right now. Yeah. But he'd still be considered. He was supposed to be considered one of the best centers in the league. Anthony Bennett was considered to be, yes, he was a late draft jump up because he looked good late in the year. Mm-hmm. But you also look at that draft, and that draft sucked. Giannis would probably go first, but
he would.
Either way, like it's hindsight is always going to be 2020. You make your picks based on what you see at that moment. If they don't work out, that's why there's 7 rounds, and that's why it's every year.
Exactly. And yeah, it's an really interesting discussion to have because you can't really like that's I just wanted to summarize that by saying prospects we don't really know, but at the draft, even more so, it's like everyone knows more than you, but in reality, nobody knows.
Yeah.
It's like when say I said, oh, Zach Benson isn't a top 10 player in the class, which I don't believe, but say I said that and someone was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, what if Zach Benson is like a complete bust in 3 years? And it's like, well, you're not going to go back on that take Austria, 3 years ago. Yeah, like you're not going to go back to that take in 3 years and be like, oh, look, I was right. Like no one.
And really edit your tweet. Know. Go back and edit your tweet and say Zach Benson's not a top 10 player.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's such a crapshoot, honestly. And especially this year when is apparently the most talented class we've seen in a long time. There's just picks that aren't going to work out, or they're going to really hit. Like there's going to be a pick in the 15 to 25 range that is a top 5 player in the class for sure, because that's just how talented this draft was. And you don't know, right? It could be Colby Barlow.
I think
find out at Dead Camp this week.
Yeah. I mean, for this draft, pick 2 to 200 and whatever is kind of a crapshoot. I'm sorry. I know.
Well, yeah, one.
There are exceptions to what we're saying.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Maybe Connor Bedard isn't the star we think he is. Maybe he's only a 60-point play at the NHL level. You never know. Obviously,
maybe he's too small. Can't hang in the corners. He's too small.
Maybe he's only a 20-goal scorer and not a 50-goal scorer.
Yeah.
Well, we won't know until 2030. Let's say.
No, with Bedard, we'll probably know in a year or two. Yeah. Let's be honest. But yeah.
Either way,
that kind of went off the rails at the end, but it was a really good episode. Yeah, exactly. It was a great episode though. We had Brian join us at the start from the lake with some spotty reception, but we made it work. And then the prospect pyramid. That's really fun. We want to do that every year. We'll probably do that every year the same week, like after the draft. Before development camp, there's a little sweet spot there that we'll do this. And send us your prospect pyramids. Use the same one because let us know where we're wrong. We just went on a long tangent about how you could probably be wrong about certain prospects. So if you think you're right, go ahead. Comment under our post. We'll post it tomorrow, and let us know. Cole Perfetti's maybe a tier 2 prospect. Maybe you're higher on Elias Salomonsson. Maybe you think he's in the tier 2. Yeah, I don't know, right? There could be a million arguments made about every single prospect on the board. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do. It's a good mental exercise with all the prospects in the Jets system right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
all right.
Unless you've got anything else, we can get out of here.
No, that's about it. It was a good
Alrighty.
episode. It was fun. Hopefully everyone will be at Dev Camp. Come say hi if you want to.
Yeah. So. come say hi. We'll be there. It should be a really fun week. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. And yeah, I'll get out of here. They need some luck right now, so I'll say go Sea Bears.
Yeah, go Sea Bears. We're still top, but not for very long. Edmonton's kind of catching up with everything. It's just a cluster in both conferences. That's your summer sports update.
Boom. Yeah. No, the Sea Bears got to pick it back up. 2 straight losses, unacceptable. All right, we'll get out of here. Go Sea Bears.
Go Jets. Go.